Well, it's great. Great you could join us today. I've been a student. I realised in preparation for this, a student of time management for the best part of 40 years, 4 decades, and I first learnt the importance of it when I was in my late teens and I was being pulled from pillar to post, new girlfriend, new job, and everything else happening. And a friend of mine showed me how to use the diary. He actually bought me a diary, showed me how to use it, and I was hooked. And that was 40 years ago. And through a process of trial and error, failure and success, I'm happy, sorry, Leah, I'm happy to go back to the other view. Did you just change
okay.
view?
Yep, that's fine.
So, yeah, so I prefer to see... No, I prefer to see other people's smiling faces than my big head. So, so over the last 30 to 40 years, I've had a variety of careers, some busier than others, and where I've really had to develop my own set of best practices. So I'm going to attempt to share a number of those 40 years learning into about 45 minutes. I want to say right up front, thank you for those of you who responded to my email about your own challenges. And so what I'm going to attempt to do is try to embed that content throughout today. And if I don't address anything specific, feel free to shoot me an email after or give me a call sometime afterwards. I'm also going to open up for questions through this session. I find that in all the other webinars I've done, sometimes question and answer on webinar can be a bit challenging for people, but I do encourage you to ask if you've got a question circling your brain. I can almost guarantee that other people will be challenged with a similar thing. So today is really about helping us get back in control. And I want to start by looking at the whole area of planning. So my work is driving organizational efficiencies in companies and organizations, mainly through process and people. And on the people side of it, driving efficiencies, time management is massive. And one of the things I encounter in my coaching of people in increasing their productivity is that this is a generalization, but they tend to be more reactive in nature than planned. So instead of having a destination and mapping out the journey, it's just an ad hoc, I'll take this road, I'll take this road. This person wants me to come down this road, so I'll divert over there. And I just want to take the first 10 minutes or so to look at the whole area of planning. One of the things, and this is a relatively fresh learning for me in the last, few years, is that of personal rhythms. And all of us have peaks and troughs of our energy through every single day. Some of us are early birds. I wish I could see the hands. I'm still on the big screen, Leah, for some reason. But some of us are early birds and some of us are night owls. Now Leah's on the center screen. You've got to love technology. So all of us have these peaks and troughs of energy, and you would have heard the old adage, do the hardest thing first, which really relates to procrastination and avoiding procrastination and doing it when you're fresh. But I've really retermed that, do the hardest thing when your energy is at the highest. So an exercise for you right at the start. If you've got a piece of paper and pen beside you, write down the times of day when your energy is the highest, or you might jot it into your phone because you'll use this later. So the hours when your energy is the highest, so it might be between 9 and 12, 3 and 6, might be from 10 p.m. till 1 a.m. And then also do the same for when your energy is the lowest. When you're scraping along the ground, trying to wake up, most people go over the lunch hump into a little bit of a dip there. Now, what I'd like you to do is write down 2 of your most demanding tasks. Those tasks that call forth the highest amount of concentration or that you don't like doing. For example, phoning back cranky customers. Most people don't like doing that. If you're in debtor follow-up and you're not suited for the position, phoning debtors, that's not a kind job if you don't like saddling up for conflict. So just write down the 2 most challenging tasks, then the most mundane tasks that you just find it easy to do. Yeah, I still can't see everyone, Leah. I don't know what's happened, but that's all okay. I've got a few up on the top.
I did change it back, but I don't know why it's not working.
Yeah, that's okay.
I think, Ray, if you go up the top and click your own view button and click gallery view.
Gallery. Hey.
Oh.
Now I'm back in the room.
There you go. I'll even turn my video on for you. How about
that? Maybe I'll go back to the other view. I've just so you know, I've done public speaking for probably about 30 years in workshops. So the restriction side of things with COVID's just limited me to webinars. So it's been quite a learning experience the last year or so. So we've got our highest energy, hardest tasks, lowest energy, easiest tasks. When we're planning our worlds and our days and our weeks, trying to match those things is an important foundation of planning. The author Thomas Mitchell said, "It's wonderful how much work can be got through in a day if we go by the rule, map out our time, divide it off, and take up one thing regularly after another." Now, I'm going to show you a little bit of my world here. Share a screen. So you'll see here that this is essentially a default dividing off the day for how I like to live my life if I can. Now, I'm aware that we've got, managing directors here, senior leadership. We've got people in a variety of roles right throughout the organization. And so for me, I fire up at about 4 to 5 a.m. When my eyes open, I jump up and I write for those first couple of hours. My energy drops off, then I'm back around that 9 to 10 mark. And I've divided off my day around the midday. So in the mornings, I do my marketing work, calls, making meetings, etc., writing, anything to do with marketing. And then in the afternoons, after I read the AFR, have my lunch and sometimes sneak in a 20-minute nap, I'll do my meetings. And that's a default layout that I continue to come back to. Does it always go to plan? No. Sometimes I'll get off the track with the best of them, but having this as a default, I use Google Calendars. This sits in behind, and so I can turn it on when I'm trying to reorientate my world. I go back to what I know is best for me and where my energy's rising and falling. It's a basic layout. You'll also notice that I've got dance lessons on Monday night, and then a dance practice with my partner on Wednesday night. And the reason I put that in is that is a massive productivity booster for me. There's a brilliant book out called You might want to write this down, called Rest by Alex Pang. And if you put it onto Google, you'll find it. He's got a couple of middle names, but it's a brilliant book about the importance of rest and play for increasing our productivity. It's very much counterintuitive, but I find that dance of the night means that I'm scheduling for play, I'm scheduling for fun, so that life isn't all about work, 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 work. I come off working 18-hour days in my earlier life and walk the edges of burnout. So I've learned how to play over time. It's an important thing to put into your diary. So moving on from that, so that's the foundation that I go back to. I shouldn't have. I'll just share my screen again. So one of the things I've developed over the time is moving on to creating a default. So this is in my latest book, How Efficiency Changes the Game, and I'll be sending you the chapter of it complimentary after this session or tomorrow, which covers off a lot of this. But this is a default diary. Now, numbers of you who sent back the responses to my email, a lot of it was about how do I lock things in? How do I not get blown off track? And I find that using a default calendar that picks up the key tasks that I've got to do on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, and putting them in a default system means that I've got a general layout of my day. Again, most people I encounter in the office environment get to the office, grab a cup of coffee, they might write a quick list and off they go for the day. But there's no real method to it. There's no real plan about how they're going to do it. And so this example was from an estimator. So he's divided or she's divided off their day into estimating being a primary focus in the morning, obviously after clearing calls and responding to calls and clearing emails, lunch break, and then going into meetings in the afternoon. And you'll notice that there's white space there. In my early days, I made the mistake of jamming up my calendar in 15-minute increments. So the whole day was jammed up. And then all you'd need is one interruption. You would just, I was totally blown off course. So over the time, I've learned that when I'm planning out my day to leave white space, because when those interruptions come in, as they invariably do, I can start to move things around. I'm going to do one more slide and then I'll just open for questions on this. One of the things I've learned over time and I coach others in is while we want to manage our time, we also want to be outcomes focused. So this bloke or lady has allocated 3 hours, approximately 3 hours, 4 hours for estimating. Some days that might be 2 hours, 1 hour, 3 hours. Other days it might go more. And so being able to put in to our diary what we want to get out of the day, the major outcomes, and in those time slots. And this is just how I run my days. So in the estimating time, they want to complete the Acme and Smith & Co. estimates and then review the request from Jones and Sons. So that's an outcome-oriented activity rather than just launching into estimating and then looking up the files and figuring out on the fly. It's pre-programmed, and same with the site visits. And in mine, as in your calendars, no doubt, beside this where I've got it in mine, I put the meeting invite. And so I'm always working to that flow through the day. as I said, does it always work? The best laid plans? No. But starting with a plan is much more effective than making it up as we go. So any questions on that at the moment? It's some of this stuff is a little counterintuitive. I mean, you might all be doing this, I'm not sure. But questions, observations on that?
Ray, one thing I notice, and I have to be careful, my colleague Mitch is also on Zoom
yes.
in the next room. But both of us deal with this. Interruptions and conversations from colleagues who genuinely need us to help move their work along.
Yep.
So scheduling my time is all great, but then how do we protect and preserve that scheduled time?
Okay, so this is part of what I wanted to cover today, so I will skip right to that. I'm sure this is a challenge for probably all of you and everybody I work with and coach in time management as well. So I've developed something I call scheduling interruptions. So, and this is where the white space comes in handy. I'll give you some examples. I'm working with a couple of managing directors at the moment, and they were finding, as most people in management and in any role really, we get asked for requests from all around, and these two managing directors are getting requested from their managers on a regular basis. So what I encouraged them to do was request from their managers that they keep a list of everything that was not urgent and schedule a weekly meeting with them. And so once a week, the managing director meets with each of the managers and goes through all of the tasks that are non-urgent. Obviously, if there's urgent things, that's a little different. When I ran a finance business, it was an incredibly reactive business. I often liken it to electrical or plumbing responsiveness in that maintenance service side. It was incredibly reactive business. And I knew that writing home loans, the writing process was what made me money. And so what I designed was that I divided off my day between 8 and 12 is when I would work on home loans. I gave my phone to my receptionist, and I said, if anyone calls on this line, the landline, tell them I will call them back between 12 and 1 p.m. So what I was effectively doing was being able to concentrate on high value work, and I was scheduling those interruptions. The other thing that I did was after every hour and a half, I would meet with my receptionist just for 15 minutes. And instead of me yelling through the door and saying, hey, can you do this? I had to be disciplined as the boss. She had to be disciplined as the worker to write down the things that we needed to communicate. And because there was so much going on, I could only work for that hour and a half, solid focus, and then we'd meet for 15 minutes. Now, the only calls that were allowed to come through was if someone's home loan was due to settle in 30 minutes and, you know, they needed a document. But other than that, and the thing I learned then too was urgent doesn't always mean urgent. Urgent sometimes means that, you know, the callback can be in 3 or 4 hours. As far as CCs, one managing director, I sent an email to one of his managers, CC the managing director in, and I get this response back. As I was CC'd, I assume it is only for information and does not require action. I only review CC'd emails on a weekly basis. He's scheduling his interruptions. They go into another folder. Should this email require action from myself, please could you resend it to me and let me know what I need to do. Thank you for your understanding and assistance. I thought that was brilliant. CCs, so many people I work with, they just get inundated with copied emails. So anyway, I pass that along because that's effectively scheduling interruptions and siphoning them off into a separate folder. One other person I'm working with who's a service manager, we're working, his day is full of bounce and full of reactive activity. We did a test at the start of when I was working with him to see, in his terms, if the house had burned down, if he turned his phone off or onto silent for 30 minutes while he focused on something else for that 30 minutes. He reported back the house didn't burn down, and he's able to focus for 30 minutes at a time, then respond to his phone. And then they've set up other systems for rerouting calls as well. Is that helpful, Catherine? Is there anything else you want to push out on that?
No, that's, yeah. Our world can be both. We're migration lawyers, by the way, in case anyone was wondering. Have a think about how busy our world is right now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it sort of depends on what's going on. So you're right, somebody else's crisis may not be a crisis. But then again, it actually might be. So, yeah. But yeah, turning the phone off for an hour may not be a problem. So it's a tricky one. But we usually know if there's, an Afghanistan happening. So
yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And I think it's being able to train your staff, for those of you who have got staff, to understand what urgent actually means in the nature of your business. But I do find, and that's why on the screen I showed before with the estimator's default diary, where there's that section for emails and callbacks. And it depends on your business and the nature of your role, how often those go into the day. But I think the worst thing we can do is just continually bounce, pick up the phone, respond to an email, a message comes through. One person I'm working with, I think they've got like 5 or 6 means of incoming traffic through all different apps and web platforms, which is way too many. And so being able to really take a hold of it and then schedule those interruptions. So any other questions on that? It's a really powerful. I'm glad you asked that, Catherine, because it's an issue for pretty much every busy person. So.
The only challenge that I've had, and I think we've all faced it over the past year, is when we go into a quick lockdown. And, for those of us who can work from home, it's great. But then you've got to suddenly turn your mind into, okay, what do I take home? What's more important? What's the priority? How long are we going to be in lockdown for? It's almost not a panic, but it's like, have I got everything without taking the whole office home?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just making sure that we're all still trying to be productive, and also, the importance of touching base with staff. And I think Catherine mentioned about staff, coming and talking to her and interrupting, and I get that as well. But I think, I kind of consider, with what we're going through at the moment, we need to kind of stop for a minute and just do that. Even though our work is all important for all of us, we need to maybe just stop for a minute.
Yeah, I think, and that stopping is something that I've, somebody said, I don't know how true this is, I never researched it, but, human beings are the only ones on the planet that run faster when they're lost. And I noticed that, as things ramp up, we're just trying to tick things off our list. But again, the counterintuitive process, which I think really drives productivity, is when we're starting to get the speed wobbles, just to be able to sit back, go back to our list, to plan, go back to our diary. That's why I like having that default there, that first screen I showed you. When my world wobbles, I'm constantly trying to drive traffic back to that. And I think the important thing, and this comes into the interruptions as well, when I've realized that if I don't set my agenda, everybody else has an agenda for me. And so as I work through a schedule, somebody phones and says, can I meet up with you? I say, that'd be perfect. I've got next Tuesday and Wednesday afternoon at 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Do either of those suit you? So I'm constantly directing traffic according to what works best for me. Now, some clients that I work with or others will say, no, my afternoon's a shot, or no, let's do coffee at 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, sure. So I move my diary around, I get back, and that's the thing I love about electronic calendar, and I move it. A managing director of a construction firm I've been working with, two of his major roles were quote preparation and on-site visits in order to win the business, well, to get the agreement to go back and write the quote. When we first started working together, he was on-site meeting, back in the office, on-site meeting, and his days just were a mix of everything. And so we divided off his day, and his mornings were for writing the quotes and his afternoon were for on-site visits. Not only did it clear his head, but it increased his productivity and lost time, picked up time, because he was just streamlining all of those meetings. So effectively, he was orientating his customers around what worked best for him. And again, doesn't always work. If someone phones up and they've got a pipe pissing out water, if you're a plumber, you got to get to it now. so it's not a it's not a perfect situation, but being able to schedule those times where you can respond to emails and calls, etc. I think the other thing too I will mention here is that for those who are in office environments that you're working with others, being able to educate your co-workers. So if you are working on something focused, or you set 2 hours a day between 10 and 12 to work on quotes or whatever it is, documentation, that everybody else knows in the office that when your door's closed, that's your focus time. So it's about, again, communicating what's important for you and directing traffic. I heard of an open office that I mentioned this on another webinar, that they used to have gold Buddhas sitting on each person's desk. When the Buddha was faced into the person and the back to the other person coming in, that meant stay away. I'm focused. When the Buddha was turned out, it meant I'm open for discussion and interruption. Now, you may not all want a gold Buddha on your desk. Another client of mine said she'd probably prefer a knife, but she didn't do that really, but she did suggest it, which I thought was funny. So again, it's being able to direct the traffic. When it comes to, I had somebody come back and say, one of my challenges is my boss and the interruptions that the boss drives through. And I think one of the things there is, and I'm working with some admin staff and the boss as well. And so we're actually working for them being able to work together of how they can increase each other's productivity. And so if you've got a boss that keeps throwing things into you and they're undisciplined, being able to position it to say, I'm aware that you're under the pump and you need extra time, and and that you're really struggling to get everything done, how about we meet for 15 minutes at the end of the day to review everything that's happened and what I need to do for the next day? So again, you're taking that control and scheduling your interruptions. Other questions?
Ray, can I just ask a quick question? Sorry.
Yeah, sure.
Sort of combining a few of the things you've been saying. So with the scheduling interruptions or trying to educate staff or coworkers, colleagues on when you're available for what, I guess part of the question I have with it in terms of writing things down so that when you're available, the other person's available, you can communicate with them. Usually nowadays, at least certainly for me, it's a 5-second email, jot it down, smash it, send it out, right? So it's, because if I don't do that, that is my paper on my desk, it's my email sending it out, so I've done it. But then what I'm confused on with that is that if I do that, or if others do that with me, I'm getting those emails and I'm not CC'd, I'm actually direct on it, let's say. So how would you suggest when I'm trying to schedule the interruptions and schedule the planned time to respond to those emails without actually opening them up and looking at them? Is it a matter of scheduling, saying, hey, between these hours and these hours, I'll actually look at all the emails that I'm directly, like I'm sure a lot of us are in the same boat, especially with you know, the wonderfulness of technology. We have more means of being able to be harassed by various situations, which is good and bad, depends on the situation. So it's just trying to understand when and how to action those emails, or even just simply read them, or a Teams message or a Zoom message or an SMS. How do you actually manage that in today's climate?
Well, it's not too dissimilar to the scenario I said before when I was in the finance business. So I had, because it was a very reactive business, I had set times. My business now is much more controlled. So I read my emails every morning and I respond to everything in the morning. And then anything that comes through the day, I will check it through the day. Clients, I'm back within as soon as I get it, pretty much, because they're top of the tree. But everything else that can wait, and then I'll have a look at the end of the day and clear it. So again, it's really dependent on volume. I had somebody else just say, you know, death by email. And I think the thing is the discipline. I like clearing it first thing in the morning, because then it gives me a free day, and reading it, reading everything then. But again, it's really on the nature of your business. If you know that if it's intercommunication or client, it's just being able to sift through and respond as per what their request is. So if it's a client, for me, it's as soon as I get something from a client, I'm generally back within 30 minutes.
But does that, would that not up? I mean, I hear what you're saying, and I'm pretty similar, except I find that every email is critical, unfortunately. Well, not every, but you know what I mean by that. In doing that, does it not, though, dictate that it's going to interrupt your headspace when you're trying to stay focused on X task, and then an email comes in? Like, I mean, you know, if an email comes in once every 10 minutes on average,
yeah,
you know, you look in that hour-long block, you've had 6 interruptions. Your efficiency on that trying to stay focused on that task is next to zero in terms of efficiency.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So I will tend to, if I'm working on a critical project or something that takes a lot of focus, I don't have alerts come up, and I shut that down. Like today, preparing for this, I just turned my phone off, and then I checked it, you know, at the end of the hour. So because I know that most things can wait for an hour. So, but again, if you're in a reactive maintenance business, that's where the other challenge comes from. And that's where being able to start to have a look at load and incoming traffic, and then seeing around the reroutes that can happen to other people and other sources as well. It's I don't find the whole it's a perfect science, but it's really ascertaining load, the responsiveness and the demand of the clients in this case, and then how you can structure it. Like I said, the service manager I'm working with, we're just working on 30-minute blocks of high degree focus, and then he's got 30 minutes or 60 minutes actually to respond to emails, requests, because he's operating nationally. So he might have people out in the middle of the bush, you know, needing his assistance. But again, he did that test at the start to see if the house had burned down, and it didn't. So he knows he can work for 30 minutes, and they've also set up some phone reroutes as well. So yeah, I'm not sure if I've answered it perfectly. It's the situation with me. It's really dependent on our roles in our businesses and working out. I tell you, one of the things I'll share this. I'll share this with you. Now this is on my website. Where are we? The time analysis. Now, some of you may have done this by working with analysing your time in 15-minute increments. So some of you will have done this, some it will be new. This is on my website. If you go to rayhodge.com.au, I've got what I've called the resource bar. It's fully stocked with hundreds of blogs and articles and templates and tools and video, audio. This is under the time management section. You can download it for free. But this gives a really good handle whenever I start coaching someone with time management. It's a pain in the ass to do. I've done this numerous times because for a week or 2 weeks, you're writing everything down that you're doing in the activity column. And then you're starting to, as you're working there, you're documenting the interruptions that come in, or when you interrupt somebody else, which is often the case for some of us. And we get a great idea and we go and interrupt somebody, and we could have left it till the end of the day. The notes is for reflection, and the category is whether it's, you know, admin related, marketing, sales, whatever the case is. And this, the people I've done this with have often had great insight into their days and where their interruptions are flowing. This is actually a live one that I did. It's pretty messy, but I just wanted to show you. This was a guy I worked with, a manager. He just wrote it in his diary, and we were trying to ascertain where the calls were coming from. So I know you won't be able to read the writing, but you can see the color coding. So this right-hand side was all the calls that were coming through. And he was, so what we did was we color coded them according to source. And then what we did, we took this, and because he was really struggling to get everything done. And then we did what I call the all roads syndrome to some roads. So he was getting all the calls coming through from supervisors, from techs, from suppliers, from clients. And then what we did was we started to reroute those calls to capable others. And this guy had supervisors on the ground, but the technicians were bypassing the supervisors and calling him. So there was a permanent shift in the green line, a permanent shift of responsibility that the techs had to actually call the supervisor. Other people might have called in and he'd flicked them off to capable others. But it all came from this time analysis. We were able to ascertain load, interruptions coming in, and then divert the roads. Another guy I did this with, he was through this, he used this sheet. He was doing quoting here, quoting here, quoting here, quoting here. And he was getting on average 80 calls a day. So, but we used this to remap, create a default calendar and block that quoting time. He gave his phone to his PA, and there was a whole system around all of that. But that's a really powerful tool to get on top of being able to ascertain where those incomings are. And it's the same even with your email traffic. I'd probably, what I do is analyze for you, Aaron, is analyze, and again, it's a painful process, but analyze it for a week. Source, frequency, you'd be able to have a look through your inbox and then just see if you can get some objectivity and insight into the source, the urgency factor of it, and then how you can actually plan your day according to the responsiveness of emails. And then it's obviously training others as well. Any other questions on that? We're about at the 45-minute mark.
Hi, Ray.
Hey, Fern.
Hello. Tom here as well. We're the plumbers, the maintenance plumbers.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we have someone in the office during the day, but Tom's has the issue of he's being pulled onto work site, helping the guys, trying to do quotes, quoting at night, and because we offer 24-hour maintenance as well. So the phone gets diverted through to us at night. So, and Tom always likes to take phone calls because it could be work. So, and I try and, you know, as it rings now, so like to try and not have it when it's going around tea time. But it's just manage the constant interruptions and him being pulled onto jobs, or the guys got queries with a job, and trying to train, and it's training the guys up for the work.
Exactly, and training others around what works for you. And I know in that reactive maintenance space, it's just a challenge. But I worked with an electrical company in Sydney, and the managing director, pretty much most time I call him, it diverts through to his answering service, like a personal answering service. So I know that, and that wasn't a big company, but he had structured his days. They had a service manager, so the calls would go through to him, but he really was able to protect his time. But again, it depends on the size of the business, the nature of the business. And that's why doing this kind of time analysis work can be very, very insightful. Because just being able to, and again, as I said, it's a pain in the ass to do. You do that for 2 weeks, drive you crazy. But gosh, the insight that you get into your days and being able to reflect on it, and the categories and also the rhythm. I worked with one guy. We saw the rhythm of the calls were in the morning between 8 and 11:30. That was the guy that was getting 80 calls a day. The bulk of them happened in that time. So we were able to then structure his day. So he did his focused work in the afternoon and left that morning to be more responsive.
Yeah, I suppose it's when things go wrong on site.
Yeah.
And it's like, help. And and so your good intentions and it's just a lot.
Yeah. I do need to say, having worked, I've worked a lot with trade, civil construction businesses. One of the sources of interruptions is the person themselves. I was working with one supervisor, and because he wasn't adequately planning for the next day, he'd get all these incoming requests and phone calls and what's happening and suppliers and clients. So we shifted that for him so that at the end of every day, he was taking half an hour and an hour to be ahead of the curve. And that actually stopped that interruptions. His wife even commented that he was a lot happier and nicer when he came home, just because he had planned the following day. And that's a principle. I did want to just say, you could write this down: plan tomorrow, today, next week, this week.
Yeah.
Something I try to live by, so that when I wake up, I've got the day mapped out for me. All right, I'm going to just finish on one thing, and it's called closing the door on the day, because we're just after time. I had a client in WA. I was working with him and his wife said, you know, he's home, he's physically home, but his brain's back at work. He's emotionally absent. And I developed at that time a thing I've called closing the door on the day. And I'd encourage you to do this too. At the end of every day, whenever your end of day is, take 15 minutes or so to review what you've done for the day, and then take the yet to be done tasks and other items that you know are on your agenda, and then plan the following day, and then drop them into other days. So you're always planning ahead of the time. And then when you walk out of your office, or, you know, if you've your computer's on the kitchen table, to purposely close the lid or close the door and just leave work there. And it really helped this guy to get separation. If things like a lot of people I coach, you know, that the thoughts still, and they've forgotten something, just have them, and I'd encourage you to keep a list. If you wake up in the middle of the night and something comes to mind, like some of my clients do, just to be able to write them down. It's just being able to get things out of here onto paper, and then put a logical plan and flow through during the day for the following day. And it just helps get that separation. Just before I hand back to Leah, I mentioned before the resource bar. It's on my new website, rayhodge.com.au. There's also, if you want to go to the assessment section, there's a time management assessment. That's for free as well, and pretty much everything on my site's for free. So you can take that assessment and see how you rate. One of the things I do is I send out a weekly piece of writing. It's normally only a couple of 100 words, about a minute's read. So I'll send all of that to you. And as I say to everyone, if you think it's crap, you can unsubscribe. So there's a lot of people that receive it. I get great comments back. It's a little different to the standard business writing that I see. And if you'd like to talk further about your business, your people, processes, time management, feel free to get in touch. So thanks for having me. That time went super fast. So thanks for your participation. Leah, I hand back to you.
Yeah, no worries. So that did go very fast. I don't know where it went. But that was awesome. Thank you, Ray. I have a full page of notes, so that's fantastic. And I have already started planning my day tomorrow. So that's really, really good. Just a huge thanks to Ray. Obviously, he provides all of this for free for you guys and for us. And I think like that's amazing. So really, really appreciate it, Ray. He's got a nice new website. It looks really good, Ray, by the way. I had a look. And his emails are definitely, do not unsubscribe because they're fantastic. I read them every week. So yeah, highly recommend. So if you do want to get in touch, obviously hopefully you all have Ray's details when he sends through the chapter of the book. Yeah, just want to say a big thanks for running this again for us, Ray. I hope everyone got something out of it.
Thanks, Ray. That was awesome.